We're going to gather at the Causeway Sundays and lift the Lord on high. It might seem the lawn is full, but there's always room for more. Just squeeze and introduce yourself, cause all his friends are yours. Come on and gather at the Causeway Sunday and lift the Lord on high. Who's got the piano this time? You got it, Niels? There you go. Tickling the ivories. You might think your clothes are shabby and you don't think you'll fit in, but he doesn't see the clothes you wear, he knows you from within. So come on and gather at the Causeway Sundays and lift the Lord on high. The big finish. Yeah, we're gonna gather at the Causeway. We'll get down on our knees. We give the thanks to Jesus, cause it's meeting all our needs. We're gonna gather at the Causeway Sundays and lift the Lord on high.
Every single Sunday.
Unless it rains, we're gonna gather at the Causeway Sundays and lift the Lord on high. I'm going to tell him how we're going to mess this one up before we even do it. How about that?
Yeah.
See? You had to.
I can only imagine what it'd be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all you be still? Will I stand in your presence? To my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak it all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. When that day comes and I find myself standing in the sun, I can only imagine when all I will do is forever worship you. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all you be still? Will I stand
worship you. I can only imagine.
Yeah. Good job. Good job. That's Amber. Good job. No, that's you. That's us.
How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord Almighty. For my soul longs and even faints for you. For here my heart is satisfied within your presence. I sing thee the shadow of your wings. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Thousands elsewhere. One thing I ask, and I would seek to see your beauty, to find you in the place your glory dwells. One thing I ask, and I would seek to see your beauty, to find you in the place your glory dwells. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. My heart and flesh cry out for you, the living God. Your spirit's water to my soul. I've tasted and I've seen, come once again to thee. I will draw near to you.
Good job. Now get out of here. Dang, it's hot up here in this sun. Where's that lady that had the little white dog? Where'd she go? Didn't I meet that dog yesterday? You were over at Little Jim's yesterday with that little guy, weren't you? At Little Jim Bridge with that white dog? No? There was a dog just like that. Is he part poodle and part something else? Oh, okay. There was a dog looked just like that. And same attitude, too. Won't listen. Yeah. I thought it was the same one. Anyway, I was wrong. Did you hear that? I can admit it. I can admit it. It's true. Yeah, I know it's hard to believe. So Bob is home and healing. We're not going to call him home and sick. He's home and healing, getting better. And let me get to my study here. What the heck? I shouldn't have been playing games this morning, I suppose. These things are real handy when you can see them. All right, so we're starting into Genesis 25. And what we've been talking about is Abraham, Abram, the offspring, Ishmael and Isaac. And now we're looking into the next generation. And it says Abraham again took a wife at the very beginning, and her name was Keturah. And she bore him many sons, and he had more. The first, half of this first chapter is about all the children that Abraham had, because remember, God told him he was going to have children as many as the stars in the sky, right? And that he would be the changer and the leader and father of many nations. So it just keeps on going on with all the children that he had born to him. And Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac, his son, remember the promised son we talked about. He was the one that was promised by God. And Ishmael was the one that Abraham and Hagar had out of God's plan. Man's way of doing God's will, right? So Abraham gave gifts to all of the sons of the concubines that Abraham had, and while he was still living, he sent them eastward away from Isaac, his son. Just, I guess, keeping them separated, And as this goes on, in the sum of the years, Abraham's life, which he lived 175 years, please don't ever do that to me. I'm hurting at 60. 175 years. And he breathed his last and died in a good old age, an old man, full of his years, and was gathered to his people. And his sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave at Machpelah. Machpelah. I don't know how to say it. I'm horrible with these words. It's Greek to me. Let's leave it at that. It goes on, and then it starts talking about the families of Ishmael and Isaac. Now, in this genealogy, Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar, the Egyptian maidservant, bore to Abraham, he had 12 sons. I'm kind of skipping over this because we're going through 25, 26, 27, and 28 because it's all one story. He had 12 sons, and they were named according to the towns and their settlements. They were 12 princes according to their nations, just like God said to Hagar, your sons will be princes. But they also are offspring of Abraham. So we got to remember this is all about Abraham being the father of many, many, many. And the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he breathed his last and died, was gathered to his people. Then it goes on and it talks about the genealogy of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah as his wife, and she was the daughter of Bethuel. Isaac pleaded with the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord granted his plea. Rebekah, his wife, conceived, but it says it this way, and I guess it's the New King James. But the children struggled together within her, and she said, if all is well, why am I like this? So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her this, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples shall be separated from your body. 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. So when her days were fulfilled for her to give birth, indeed there were twins in her womb. in her womb. The first came out red, and he was hairy, hair all over him, red. And so they named him Esau, which is the word for hairy. Afterward, his brother came out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, so his name was called Jacob. Jacob means deceitful, or the supplanter, or one who takes the heel. It's funny how they name kids after what happened, right? Like the old Indian folklore. So the boys grew, and Esau was a skillful hunter and a man of the field, but Jacob was a mild man who dwelled in tents. It says Jacob, this word mild in this literature was for the word complete. In other words, he wasn't always out striving. He was complete. He was doing good. Isaac loved Esau because he ate of Esau's game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So Dad loved Esau because he was a manly's man, and he's, comes back with the game. But Rebekah loved Jacob. I didn't realize how important this was until I got further into this story. So Esau, Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, "Feed me with some of that red stew, because I'm weary." Therefore his name was called Edom, which means red. I don't know. It's one of those things. I'm just getting these little side notes. And I'm like, that's pretty interesting. But Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright as of this day." And Esau said, "Look, I'm about to die. So what's this birthright mean to me? I'll gladly do it," is what he's saying. And he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of his lentils. And then he ate and drank, and he arose and he went his way. And Esau despised his birthright. There was this time a famine in the land. We talked about famine. We think we have it rough when the refrigerator doesn't have enough food in it, but famine was way beyond that. And besides the first famine, that was in the days of Abraham. Isaac went to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines. And the Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land of which I shall tell you. Dwell in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands, and I will perform the oath which I swore to Abraham your father." Remember, as all these children go out and have children, God's given them the similar promise they gave Abraham. This is going to be your land. You're going to have, and he even goes on to say, "I will make your descendants multiply as the stars of the heaven." We heard that just a week or two ago too, right? "And in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws." So Isaac dwelt near Gerar, and the men of the place asked about his wife. See if this doesn't sound familiar. And he said this, "She's my sister." Don't remember that just a couple weeks ago? Where Abram and that, she's my sister. For he was afraid to say, "She is my wife," because he thought, lest the men of the place will kill me for Rebekah, because she is a beautiful one to behold. So then it came to pass that he had been there a long time, and Abimelech, the king, looked through a window and saw, and there was Isaac showing endearment to Rebekah, his wife. Abimelech said to him, "Quite obviously she's your wife, so how could you say she's my sister?" Isaac says, "Because I said, lest I die on her account. And Abimelech said, "What is this you've done to us? One of the people might have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt on all of us." In other words, why are you setting us up for this? So Abimelech charged all his people, saying, he who touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. In other words, they're protected by the king. Isaac sowed into the land. He reaped into the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. The man began to prosper and continued prospering until he became very prosperous, for he had possessions of flocks and possessions of herds and a great number of servants. So the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped up all the wells of Abraham. When Abraham died, they filled all the wells in with dirt. I don't know why, but they did it. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we." Isaac departed. he pitched his tent in the valley, and he dwelt there. And he dug again the wells of water that they dug in the days of Abraham, his father. In other words, he's going back and redigging their own wells back up, okay? I know there's a lot here, but that's why I'm reading it, because no way I could remember it all. And he renamed the wells that his father had called them. So Isaac's servants dug in the valley, found a well of running water there, but the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, "The water is ours." So he called the name of the well Esek, E-S-E-K, because they quarreled with him, because Esek stands for quarrel. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled with him over that one. So he called that well Sitnah, which means enmity, always against each other. He moved from there, dug another well, and they did not quarrel over this one. So he called it Rehoboth, because he said, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in this land." And Rehoboth means spaciousness. In other words, this is ours. We got our own space now. He went from there to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him and said, the same night, and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not fear, for I am with you." Here it is again. "I will bless you and multiply your descendants for my servant Abraham's sake." In other words, God's promise is still going on into what? The third generation, second generation? So he built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord, pitched his tent, and there Isaac's servants dug a well. Abimelech came to him from Gerar with Ahuzah, one of his friends. This is kind of it's not confusing, it's just a side story. He said to them, "Why have you come to me, since you hate me and have sent me away from you?" I think these are the guys that were arguing over the first two wells. So why did you come to me? You hate me. You sent me away. And they said, "We have certainly seen that the Lord is with you." Anybody ever see somebody, here's what I call it, trying to rub elbows with the rich? Well, they're doing really good. If I hang out with them, maybe some of this will rub off. This is what I kind of see going on here. The Lord is with you. So we said, "Let there now be an oath between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you that you will do us no harm, since we have not touched you, and since you have done nothing to you but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord." So he made them a feast. They ate and drank. They arose early in the morning, swore an oath with one another, and Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. It came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him about the well, which they dug. "We found water," so he called it Sheba, which means treaty. Therefore, the name of this city is now Beersheba to this day. When Esau was 40, he took his wife as wives Judith, and I told you about John Glenn talking about marriages and stuff. How are you going to do a ministry on marriage when they had concubines and 17 wives and 300 maidservants? This is old school. So let's skip forward just a little bit. So he takes other wives and has more children, basically what it comes down to. It came to pass that Isaac was old, and his eyes were so dim, Isaac being the dad, that he couldn't see. And he called Esau, his son, over to him. Remember, Esau is the one that he liked, the hunter guy, and said, "My son," and he says, "Yeah, here I am. I'm old, and I do not know the day of my death. So therefore, please take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, go out to the field, hunt some game for me, and make me some of that savory stew that I love. Bring it to me that I can eat it, and my soul may bless you before I die." In other words, he's getting ready to hand over his inheritance. So Rebekah, Isaac's wife, was listening when Isaac spoke to his son. And Esau went out to the field to go hunt some game. Rebekah, remember her favorite was Jacob, goes to Jacob and says, "Hey, I heard your father speaking to Esau, and he's out there trying to get some food, right? Bring me some game, and I'll make a savory food for him." His own wife. Imagine it. "Bring me the game and savory food that I may eat it and bless you in the presence of the Lord." How did I get ahead? Oh, she was telling him, this is what your dad said to Esau. Go make some food. "Therefore, son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock, bring me from there the 2 choice kids of the goats, and I'll make a savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father, that he'll eat it, and he will bless you before he dies, instead of Esau. Jacob says to Rebekah, his mother, look, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I'm smooth. Remember, he was born with red hair, right? And perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be a deceiver to him, and I shall bring a curse on myself instead of a blessing. The mother said, let your curse be on me, my son. Obey my voice and go get them for me. And he went out and got them and brought them to his mother. She made the savory food, and Rebekah took the choice clothes of her elder son, which were with her in her house, put them on Jacob, her son, and she put the skins of the kids of the goats on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Then she gave the food and the bread, prepared it into the hand of her son. And he went to his father and said, Father. And he said, Here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob says to his father, I'm Esau, your firstborn. I've done just as you told me. Please arise, sit, and eat of the game, that your soul may bless me. Isaac wasn't completely dumb. He said, how is it you found it so quickly? Right? It's just like a soap opera, isn't it? And he said, because the Lord your God brought it to me. Oh, geez, that's bringing God into it now. Isaac said to Jacob, come over here near me that I can feel you, my son, whether you are really my son, Esau, or not. So he did actually do that. So Jacob went near him, and he felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he didn't recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother's hands. So he blessed him. Then he said, are you really my son? And he lies to him again and says, I am. Bring it near to me, and I will eat my son's game, so that my soul may bless you. So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, come near me now and kiss me. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of the clothing. He wasn't such a fool, was he? And he says, surely the smell of my son is like the smell of the field, that the Lord is blessed. Therefore may God give you the law of the heaven and the fatness of the earth. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's son bow down to you. In other words, he's telling him, Jacob's going to bow down to you because I think you're Esau. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you. So it happened. Isaac finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob scarcely got out from the presence of his father when Esau came home with his game. He made the savory food. He brought it into Dad and said, Dad, arise and eat of the son's game, that your soul may bless me. And the father said, who are you? He said, I'm your son, your firstborn, Esau. Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, who? Where's the one who hunted the game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him, and indeed I shall be blessed. He shall be blessed. Esau heard the words of his father, and he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, bless me also. He said, but your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing, stolen it. Is he not rightly named Jacob for the deceiver? Remember what that was? Yeah. For he was supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and now look, he's taken away my blessing. He said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? Isaac answered and said, indeed, I have made him your master. Remember in the beginning it said that the younger will rule over the older? And this is how it all comes about. Made him your master. All of his brethren I have given to him as servants with grain and wine, and I have sustained him. What shall I do now for you, my son? Esau said, have you not only one blessing? Bless me also. Isaac his father answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of the heavens. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. So it came to pass that they became restless. When you become restless, you'll break the yoke of your brother from your neck. So he does get tired of it after a while, and he says, the days of mourning for my father are at hand, and then I will kill my brother. That sounds like going back to Cain and Abel. I'm trying to see what I took notes here, because it's a bunch of reading. So Isaac called Jacob, and he blessed him, and he charged him, and said to him, "You shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan." He's telling him where not to go and where to go to get a wife. So then eventually Jacob goes to Beersheba, and he went toward Haran. And he fell asleep, and where he was, he took a rock, and he laid it down, and he rested. And when he rested, he had the sleep of the ladder that was set up on the earth, and its top reached to heaven. And there the angels of the God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, "I am the Lord God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your descendants." So God is still providing, right, for Esau now, and telling him that it's, where am I? For Jacob. He's providing for Jacob. "I am with you, and I will keep you, and wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, and I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you." Jacob awoke from his dream. "Surely the Lord is in this place. I didn't know it." And he was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." Jacob rose early in the morning, took the stone that he had put on his head, set it up as a pillar, and poured oil on top of it, and they called the name of the place Bethel, which means the house of God. The place used to be called Luz, L-U-Z, previously. Jacob made a vow, saying, "If God will be with me and keep me in this way that I'm going, and give me bread to eat and clothing to put on, so that I can come back to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God. And this stone that I have set as a pillar shall be God's house, and all that you give me, I will surely give a tenth to you." The tithe. That's where the first tithe comes in. So that's all the dang reading, and it's a bunch of it. But we're going to start on the blanks up here. Jacob was deceptive. We already saw that, right? He was conning Esau out of his birthright. He tricked his father into obtaining his brother's blessing, and he was forced to flee his homeland to avoid Esau's wrath. Out on the trail, Jacob has a dream, a ladder with the angels, connecting heaven and earth, and God's promise to bless the world through Jacob and his descendants. And Jacob woke up with a new perspective. I don't have to be afraid. Did anybody have that experience, waking up with a new perspective when you realized that God was God? Completely different. When I wrote it in my book, the best way I could describe it is like God turned a light on and went, "Look at all this madness you've been doing. Wow." And things look completely different. So we're talking about this new perspective. And he saw that God's promises were good. He saw that God's promises to Abraham were good. God's promises to Isaac, Esau, and Jacob were good. God was blessing the whole time for 3 generations. God always was a blesser. Always. And then in Genesis we just read, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." So God's promise and plan continue to unfold for the 3rd generation. The living word sustains all life, and the light that shines through us, so that we might manifest his love. So the living word, what we're talking about here, the word of God didn't go void when he promised to Abraham, "You're going to have a child. Your descendants will be like as many stars in the sky." He told both his sons the same thing. "All this land's going to be yours. I'm going to bless the nations through you." When the mom had the twins in her belly, the Lord spoke to her, "You got 2 nations in you. Not just 2 children, not just 1, 2. They came forth, and both were continued to be blessed. And waking up with a new perspective. I think that's how I would relate this to, like we said, you accepted Christ. All of a sudden, there's this brand new perspective. Once you saw God and his hand at work in your life, life changed, didn't it? Did for me immensely. So, as we continue to do, even in the very first book of Genesis, we can see the coming of Jesus. We can see the promises. We can see this is all bloodline of Jesus. All of it. And eventually we'll see that it comes to David and Joseph and Mary and the whole story will come about. But I don't want to get ahead because Bob's staying on track with this. And I can mess up his study in no time. So for this week, we're going to see this story is another lead-in and another continuation of the promises for Abraham and all of his descendants. And even, was it Esau's wife? She said, she was barren, so he prayed for her. That was the same story that happened with Sarah, wasn't it? She was barren, they were late in their years, and God said, don't worry, my plan. I said it last week and then probably the week before. So many times as I read in the scriptures, there was always these two little words, these words, at just the right time, God. And at just the right time, God. And I think that's where it's bringing us back to, where do we find our peace? When do we come to the end of doing it ourselves? When do we stop striving and freaking out and wondering if God's going to notice me when he already does? The new perspective is he's noticed you all along. You just weren't aware of it. So as we finish up, we're going to read in the book 1 John. This is his commandment, that we believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another, just as he commanded us. The one who keeps his commandment abides in him, and he in him. We know by this that he abides in us, by the Spirit he has given us. It's funny that that's there, because if you look under, John 6:29, that's the one we have. Didn't put it on here, under our just trust. This is the work of God, that you believe on the one whom he has sent. So what are we supposed to do? I've heard this so many times. What are we supposed to do for God? What are you supposed to do? Well, we're supposed to feed the hungry, and we're supposed to do this, and we're supposed to do that, and we're supposed to give to the needy, and we're supposed to go out and minister his word. But Jesus said it really quite simply. We're supposed to believe. We're supposed to trust the one he sent to live in you and to guide you. Well, what about after that? Well, if he's leading and guiding, what are you going to do? Hopefully you'll do what he's telling you to do, right? But we don't so often. But we had a little concern about a friend over here, and God, if God's got him, I used to worry about this. I was teaching in Martin Correctional, and I went in there one day, and I'm like, I'm going to start ministering on the fruits of the Spirit. The fruits of the Spirit: love, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, mercy, and self-control, right? And so I went in, and I was like, had this whole sermon prepared, and before I started to do my teaching, one of the other inmates come up. He was a trustee, and he said, I'm really frustrated. I come in here, and all these guys coming into chapel, and they're all praising God and singing worship songs, but out in the yard, they're still doing the same old crap. He says, they're not showing any fruits of their faith at all. And I'm like, yeah, boy, you're going to be ready for this message I got today. And he says, but you know what God told me? I said, what's that? He said, God told me stop being a fruit inspector. I said, wow, that's pretty big. It blew my whole sermon right out of the water. And I said, did he say anything else? He says, yeah. He basically said, did they accept Christ? Yes, they did. He says, well, trust the root. Stop looking for the fruit. It's God's job. God can handle the fruit. If Jesus is in them, you can't walk away. When you try to do the old stuff, you'll be miserable. And God's just going to allow it to happen and say, when you're done, I'll be here. I'm here for you when you're done. But he's not going to force us. But here's what I say. I think he gives us the want to change. And we do it to ourselves. I'm going to keep living like this and hope God blesses me. Well, that isn't going to work. You get real tired of smashing your head against that wall. So my word to those who are trying to check the fruit out of others and see if God's working, trust the root. If God's in them, if they've accepted the gift of the Spirit, he can handle it. Wherever he is right now is part of that journey. I know it by experience. Don't you? You didn't get perfect overnight. You didn't start performing for God everything right in your will. You did it in his. He brought you along. So I've said this to many people too. If you're seeking God, then God, I believe God's already found you. Because before he was in you, you didn't care about God. But once he's there, you'll try and figure this thing out. It's like when I was suicidal, I didn't know I was seeking God. But yet, when it came down to it, God already had me. He brought me to a point of saying, are you done yet? And I was done. So I say this, trust the root. Maybe we need to make a new shirt. Trust the root. Yeah, it isn't yours anyway, it's God's. It's his vineyard. So as we close up in prayer, you do your own time out for your own trip in. With all these things being said, how many times have you tried to play a con on somebody, right? What I always thought was funny was when the branches that don't bear fruit, the word about the fruit in the vine is this: God will snip them off and they will wither and die. And here's what it says in the Bible: they will be gathered up by men and burned. So God's doing the trimming, right? And I've heard it pretty strong. Oh, see, if you don't do right, those branches will be trimmed off and you're going to burn in hell. That's not what it says. It says the branches will be gathered up by men and burned in the Gehenna fire, which is the dump, okay? I think it's interesting that in this day and age, you ever been burned by somebody? I look back at my own life. Man, I've been burned by a lot of people. Was anything you were doing good? Or were you trying to con and make it out for yourself when you got burned? Every single time. I was trying to get ahead on my own. I wasn't trusting God. But the good news is this: the branches that do produce fruit, that's God's job too. God will tend to them so they produce more fruit. Neither of them is your job. You can't produce fruit. It's not your fruit. It's God's fruit. And God's the vineyard keeper. All you're called to do is stay attached to the vine. Continue to believe. Father, as we close up today, I thank you for the lessons I've had. They're hard, but they're necessary. I thank you for the times when I plowed my face into a wall, trying to do it on my own, and needed to hear from you. I remember getting to the end of my chain so many times, not just the day I got saved, but after that with frustration. And like my friend Patty said, oh, I see, this is how you get me to come talk to you. So God, I thank you for the times that I came back to you, and you were always there, always blessing, always growing, always caring, always loving. And for all the lessons I got to allow you to produce the fruit as I stay attached to the vine. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Hey, man. Hey, man, what's up? Hey, man. Get to my... So the end of this study is why I picked this song, because it said, His light shines through us. So this one is one of my favorite songs. Did you bring this in the first time? Go Light Your World? Yeah. I love this song. Mary probably did, yeah. And then the last one is in memory of our friend Gene Lofton, the walking machine.
There is a candle in every soul, some brightly burning, some dark and cold. There is a spirit who brings a fire, ignites a candle, and makes his home. So carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, confused and torn. Hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle, go light your world. Take your candle, whose hearts are blazing. So let's raise our candles and light up the sky. Pray to our Father in the name of Jesus. Make us a beacon in darkest times. So carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the helpless, defeated foe. Hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle, go light your world. Carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, confused and torn. Hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle, go light your world. Take your candle, go light your
I love that song. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm dripping in it. The only place I get tan on is the back of my leg. This one's for Gene Lofton. Gene the walking machine.
when you walk through a storm. Hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and a sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain.
Yeah, you all walked away right in the middle of it. They're not going alone. I think that song I plugged in there because all these things with, my wife is barren. You've been deceived. Don't worry, God's got it. God's got it. You're not walking alone. He ain't going to leave you or forsake you. God bless you. Have a great Sunday.